Welcome to the Colleague Experience podcast. In this episode, we're diving into bold insights, experimentation, and groundbreaking leadership strategies that redefine success. Today, we'll explore how Alterman's poem, Encampment, reveals the tension between noble ideals and harsh realities, offering lessons for leadership in high-stress environments. Let's dive in. Alterman's Encampment is one of the most beautiful poems ever written in Hebrew. He composed it after almost being wounded in a battle during Israel's War of Independence. Rumor has it that Ben-Gurion ordered him removed from the front lines and sent back to the cafes of Tel Aviv. In this poem, Alterman describes the experience of soldiers preparing during the night before battle. What fascinates us about the poem is the inverse relationship between Alterman's elevated, almost incomprehensible language and the mundane, unglamorous content describing the gray reality of military camp life. We believe this gap represents the tension between the noble ideal of fighting for the establishment of the state and the harsh reality that this mission involves bloodshed and killing on both sides. In a chilling coincidence, Encampment was set to music by Yair Rosenblum and recorded just months before the Yom Kippur War. The reality depicted in Encampment, the routine between battles, has permeated many areas of Israeli society and culture. We've previously discussed how organizational language in Israel is infused with military motifs and battle heritage stories we all grew up with. Before returning to Alterman's poem, let's consider organizations where daily reality feels like a battlefield. In some organizations, the stress level is so high that they almost automatically become war zones. The intense tension, whether real or imagined, creates conditions where the perceived cost of any mistake is so high that one person's error becomes everyone else's excuse. It's like the famous joke about two friends who spot a bear in the forest. One quickly puts on running shoes. When his friend asks if he thinks the boots will help him outrun the bear, he replies, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." In such extreme pressure situations, the resulting dynamics push people to prefer avoiding blame rather than taking risks and collaborating. Consider the most basic, everyday scenario. An employee, let's call him Yaniv, a regional sales manager, approaches a colleague, let's call her Efrat, the procurement manager, with an urgent request. How urgent is it really? In such organizations, everything is always urgent. Both sides know this. Both sides also know that Efrat wasn't sitting idle, waiting for Yaniv to drop this request on her. For her, it's an unexpected task requiring her to change her plans. So what happens? The volume increases. Yaniv tries to pressure Efrat with rhetoric like, "Look, the world is ending, and what will save us is if you drop everything and do what I've asked." Efrat tries to deflect or postpone the request for the simple reason that it disrupts her plans, and she's under no less pressure than Yaniv. This dialogue is highly likely to escalate into a conflict approaching a battlefield. Whether this happens in seconds or minutes depends on Yaniv and Efrat's temperaments. When we're in a highly pressured environment for extended periods, we lose the ability to use our full range of communication options. Our personal experience becomes survival-oriented and our response range narrows to fight or flight. We witnessed this dynamic firsthand while consulting with a medical device company during a critical product launch. The manufacturing team had just discovered a potential quality issue, while the sales team had already communicated shipping dates to major hospital clients. The quality director and sales VP were locked in such a combative cycle that they couldn't even agree on basic facts. The situation had devolved into who would take the blame, rather than how to solve the problem. During our facilitated session, we helped them see that their mutual fear of failure was driving their behavior, not any personal animosity. Once they recognized this, they could approach the issue as partners rather than adversaries. In such stressed organizations, the significant component in interpersonal interactions becomes power. When Yaniv realizes he needs something from Efrat, he already assumes she'll say she can't do it. He's right, she really can't. He's so stressed that the only thing he can do is try to transfer his stress to Efrat. And if that doesn't work, and it won't, she has enough stress of her own, he'll use force and become aggressive toward her. When he discovers that the pressure he's applying doesn't help, he'll naturally do the obvious thing and apply more pressure. And so it continues. The thing is, he doesn't really have power. He's faking power. It's the only tool in his arsenal that's truly available to him in his stressed state. Efrat's situation isn't different. As mentioned, she'll choose fight or flight. Neither will help. If she tries to flee, he'll continue pursuing. If she tries to fight, the forecast calls for rising temperatures. Those who work in such organizations understand exactly what we're talking about. The feeling is that every day at the office is one big battlefield. We observed similar dynamics at a media agency where constant client demands created a pressure cooker environment. Account managers would routinely interrupt creative teams with urgent client requests, disrupting carefully planned production schedules. During one particularly tense deadline, an account director stormed into the design department demanding immediate changes to a campaign about to go live. Rather than explaining the situation calmly, he resorted to threats about client relationships and revenue impacts. The creative director responded with equal hostility about impossible timelines and changing requirements. When we worked with this team, we introduced a simple pressure check process where, before escalating requests, staff had to articulate both their needs and acknowledge the impact on others, creating space for empathy in their interactions. What can be done? Let's acknowledge upfront that this is a very complex challenge, and it will be difficult to, impossible to change the organization. Change can happen at the level of the employee who decides to confront this organizational dynamic and break free from the loop of endless power struggles over everything. To escape this loop, one must be able to decide that power is not the first option and instead use compassion. Yes, compassion. It's very difficult. It's hard to connect with compassion when we're experiencing a battlefield. But it's the only way to change the dynamics around us. If Efrat doesn't see just Yaniv's aggression, but also his helplessness and his attempt to fake power, she might succeed in changing the dynamic of their dialogue. If she pauses a moment before moving to the power answers power stage and looks at the situation from a distance, she may see Yaniv's distress. From this observation, she might connect with compassion and sensitivity. This doesn't necessarily mean Efrat will agree to Yaniv's request. Not at all. But something in the conversation, at least from her side, will change. It probably won't resolve the conflict, but it will certainly lower the flame height and the battlefield feeling. If we return to Alterman's Night Encampment, the fifth stanza opens with the words, "He speaks of love." With this, he begins. Alterman is likely describing the commander addressing the soldiers before battle. But contrary to expectations, the commander doesn't appeal to aggressive and militant emotions. He begins with love. Perhaps love for the country and the beloved back home. But love. Later, that same commander will talk about the battle and the burden placed on the soldiers. But in his opening words, he turns to the emotion furthest from the battlefield. Love. Beautiful. In Alterman's poem, we see a reflection of what we've been discussing. Even in the most intense preparations for battle, there remains space for human connection, for higher emotions beyond mere survival. This is what we strive to remember in our most challenging organizational environments. That beneath the urgent requests and defensive postures are people seeking connection, meaning, and yes, sometimes even love in its broadest sense, the recognition of our shared humanity. When the commander in the poem speaks of love, with this he begins. He reminds us that even in our most battlefield-like organizational moments, we can choose to begin differently. We can acknowledge the humanity in ourselves and others before engaging with the tasks, challenges, and conflicts that await us. And that wraps up today's podcast. We explored how the tension between ideals and reality in Alterman's Night Encampment mirrors workplace dynamics and emphasized choosing compassion over conflict to foster human connection. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.